All right, so if you watched that unit circle video, it might have been a little confusing because I didn't really explain where these, what the heck, the root 2 over 2 and the root 3 over 2, where these numbers came from, right? So this video is just for those people that are interested, that want to know, well, where do those values come from? Like, instead of just looking at my calculator. Believe it or not, you guys have seen this before. Just it wasn't presented to you in a in this way. Okay, it actually all comes from these two guys, 30 60 90 and 45 45 90. If you guys are like, oh, that sounds so familiar, it's because this was when you learned about triangles in geometry, right? So 45 was a little bit more even. So each of these triangles actually can spit out those values of that you see above, right? You learned that with the 30 60 90 triangle, that there's like a special relationship that exists, all right? If you don't remember, the relationship goes x, this one's 2x, and then this one is x root 3. 45 45 90 was it was x, and x root 2. All right. And basically, if you plug in the values of the unit circle, we can actually figure out the other two sides. So like, for example, on the 30, 60, 90, right? If this value is 1, right? If that value is 1, because remember, that's your hypotenuse of the unit circle. Well, then I can figure out what x is, right? I can figure out what x is by using the relationship above, right? Basically, this is saying whatever x is, multiply it by 2. So that means the x has to be 1 over 2 because it has to be half the value of whatever the hypotenuse is, right? And then if that value is 1/2, oopsies, if that value is 1/2, then that means this x root 3 value has to be 1/2 times root 3, or root 3 over 2. You see, that's where these values come from, right? If I were to take sine of 30 here, right? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so the opposite is 1/2. Hypotenuse is 1. So look at that. It all comes back again, right? This is another way we found sine of 30. It's 1/2, right? If I wanted cosine of 60, right? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and we get 1/2 over 1, which is 1/2 again, right? So if you saw the other video already, right? Remember how I said like the sine and cosine values flip when you go from 30 to 60, right? And this is why, right? This is why it fulfills all of this. It all comes from this 30, 60, 90 idea, right? And you can do the same thing with the 45, 45, 90 idea, right? So think about it. If I have, in this case, right, the 45, 45 is here, right? And the hypotenuse in this one is 1 now. So this is a little bit trickier, okay? So this means x root 2 is equal to 1. X root 2 equals 1. So then what does x equal? Well, x is going to equal, if I divide everything by root 2, you get 1 over root 2, and then we can rationalize the denominator. We did this a while back. I know, it's been a while. And you end up getting that root 2 over 2 value I was talking about. So what does that mean? This is root 2 over 2, and this is root 2 over 2, because of our 45, 45, 90 triangle. All right, so once again, I can find trig values of this guy, right? I can do sine of 45, right? And that's going to be opposite, which is opposite over hypotenuse, which is just root 2 over 2, right? Once again, if you saw the other video, the other video with the unit circle, right? These were the values that came up when we found sine and cosine of 45. All right, pretty crazy stuff. I know. Once again, come to those Zoom meetings if you're having trouble with this stuff. All right, see you at the next video.